Welcome back to UCLAradio.com. You're listening to the beginning of Pushing the Envelope, a show where I, your host, DJ Klutzcat, will be interviewing different experimental artists each week. This week, I got to sit down with Asuquomo, an artist from Ottawa, Canada, who's had a big presence in the city's hip-hop scene since 2014. This year, he released 2 EPs, OT Rhythm back in February and Diob in June. Diob evolves Asuquomo's musical style by incorporating Afrobeat and creating this great fusion with hip-hop, and at the same time it is a departure from his previous releases because he doesn't use any samples. This is all original instrumentation. So I was really happy to sit down with him and talk about this release and how he's doing in Canada. It's very cool to see that he's able to continue performing in Canada. Recently he had he was part of the drive-through concert in which a bunch of cars drove up and he performed for them. So it was really exciting to talk with him, and I hope you enjoy the interview. I'm going to start out by playing the track Light Years Away from his debut LP, This That Mo. And the second track I'm going to be playing is Wide Awake off his earlier EP released this year, OT Rhythm. And you should be able to tell the difference in the styles between these two songs and the songs off his new EP, Diob, which I'll be playing later in the show. So yeah, I hope you enjoy the song and the interview. This is Pushing the Envelope on UCLAradio.com.
It could take a century for your ship to get to me. Make your memories. I'm on my own, don't wanna think about it. Across the zone, Nirvana, please allow me. A friend, a fool, oh, how do you feel around here? I lost control, I'm lost in a maze. Born skin, born my trash. Hold fights with the blaze. Trust in the days when all kings will regret and get hung by the prey. Cause with a plague, my swing at your neck. I can't figure myself until I stumble across this. Straight fruit on a branch, left sounds like a buck race. Compromised in the woods, damn. Move all around, you can fall till you can't breathe. Then skies how you move, learn. Shoot for the stars, uppercuts with a blunt fist. Synchronize with the truth, damn. Go group out of town to return with the blunt fist. Visualize all your moves, learn and pray for the best, but prepare for the conflict. Oh, don't wanna think about it. Across the zone, Nirvana, please allow me. A friend, a fool, how do you feel around here? I lost control, yeah. It could take a century for your shit to get to me. I'm on my own, don't wanna think about it. Across the zone, wanna find a think about it. A friend of foe, how do you think about it? I lost control, wait, I put in twice the walk in half the time. Double the strength on my spine, I'm used to having the stress. But in my thoughts, I feel the weight on my mind. Opinions do not affect the outcome of mine, so feel free to weigh in on mine. The ripple effect of time and space align. The universe destined my shine. I'm stethoscope stuck in the stars. I see the sign, that's how I know I'll be fine. Slowly approaching my prime, with blood on my palms. Bruises from mountains I climb, dating my legacy back to the gate. Never be scared of the wave. Yes, I was shook by the element, and it's my home. I leave my markers in stones, never could put out the flame. This first spark came from striking a stone with a stone, and I lived on a rock like whoo. One with nature, all of you ninjas is drones. Eyes up in the sky, I know your type. All of you ninjas is spies, gold, all on my own. Out in the cold, not gonna send anyone home. Oh, don't wanna think about it. Across the zone, Nirvana, please allow me. A friend, a fool, how do you feel around here? I lost control,
Take a look at me and you will see that I just lived it. I've been lying, breathing down the road.
Take a century for your shit to get to me. So let's make this memories. Yes, please.
Take a look at me and you will see that I just lived it. I've been lying, breathing down the road.
All right, welcome Asuquomo to Pushing the Envelope. How are things in Canada right now? How are you doing?
Things are good. It's a good day out. I had a walk and it's bright and nice outside. Yeah.
It's good to hear. Um, what is the hip hop scene like in Ottawa, Canada?
The hip hop scene in Ottawa is exciting right now, and I say exciting and I say right now because I've experienced the industry for maybe roughly the past 5 to 6 years, and I say exciting right now because there's a lot happening in so despite COVID, there's a lot happening in the upcoming scene, the non-established but breaking out scene to the has been in the scene and reinventing themselves. So everyone is kind of hands-on right now despite COVID. So I just think it's a good time for it.
Yeah, and it seems like the city's doing a pretty good job with adjusting to COVID. I mean, you've done like this drive-in performance where you perform for all these cars. What was that like doing that?
That was really interesting. That was a first for me, and I couldn't picture what it would be like going over there to do that performance. But I did my thing, I did what I would do if I had people up front in a mosh pit or in a crowd or anything like that. Kept the energy. And as far as the organization and the sponsorship and the restrictions on COVID and just the distance and everyone having masks on from the organizers backstage to the technicians wiping down my mic with Lysol and all that stuff. Details were put in place, and I felt safe. I felt like excited. It didn't like COVID being like a thing where we have to still manage to pull off a show with COVID. It didn't take out from the fun, for the most part. So I was really like excited about that, and I'm glad that that came true in the performance as well.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Um, how have you been? Have you picked up any new hobbies since COVID hit? Been doing anything
Um,
different than?
uh, I have. I've had that question asked in a few interviews, and one thing I would say is like I cook a lot more now, just because I've had time to just sit and decide, what, I'm just gonna go make it, so I've picked up my hobby of keeping good sketchbooks and just making roughs of ideation and thumbnails and just doodles and stuff like that, because that's what I did all through design school. But I've picked up some sketchbooks again during quarantine. I was on the edge, I was trying to figure out how I would put out the creativity. So I tried oil paintings. I tried I just tried some mediums here and there, watercolor, whatnot. And I settled with just getting a sketchbook, putting down some ideas. And then if there's something that's an idea that involves a production and I can't get the team together right now, I would just make notes. It's always
Yeah.
good to have those notes down there. So that's kind of where I just did. So between journaling and relaxing into just sketching, that really worked out for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen that you've like studied some visual art. Do you think that has like impacted how you make music, like knowing some of the visual art world?
Yes, I think it definitely did impact how I approach the visual side to the music I make, and even in terms of how I write, how I approach songwriting, and how I put together my songs and the structure and all that. There's a certain visual language that comes to mind when if I say a line, I'm seeing that line in my head somehow. So if I was to paint it, there's a way I would approach it. So that translates always in the music I find, and it's not something that I'm trying to do, but just since I have it as an influence in my artistic background, it comes through in the work because I'm always being visual when I'm trying to write songs and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So when did you what did you kind of grow up listening to, and when did you realize that you wanted to, make music and be an artist?
For me, I started off the art route a bit differently. I was a bit of a dancer when I was younger. All that energy was in there, and I was doing break dancing and whatnot. And it translated into music in high school when I really got into like the Western hip hop. And I say Western because from Nigeria you listen to something like 50 Cent, Eminem, uh, down to Drake, and then the J. Cole mixtapes, and then the Kendrick Lamar's rigor mortis, and those things stuck with you. And when you were around high school and you would get into like freestyle sessions with buddies, it created like a subculture at that level where we were kids, and then it stayed with me. And then when I expanded into visual arts and started identifying myself as a multidisciplinary, because I like to, you know, involve things that feel right for a project to come together in the middle. So when I started, you know, getting comfortable in those regards, I started understanding what tool music could be for myself as an individual, and I kind of started, you know, kind of going with what felt right. That's basically how it came together.
Cool.
Yeah.
Um,
I did. Sorry to cut you off. I
Go
did a
ahead.
bit of music. Like my first recording session was 2009, but I was back in Nigeria at that time, and I listened back and it blew my mind. And I said, you know what, I'm just gonna keep making more demos and stuff, and then pushed down to 2014 when I started off as a decided to start off as a career in music. 2014, I had already studied Chance the Rapper's acid rap, Mick Jenkins from Chicago, Montreal, Vic Mensa. So, so like, you know, the really intense old school hip hop, and then the really enjoyable, excited, not new school anymore because there's Lil Tecca's right now, and you know YBNL, but you know those eras between the 2000s and 2010s kind of stayed with me and came true with my with what I'm doing right now.
Asuquomo, oh. Stop what you doing, let me say my bra. I dey drop raps with a heavy like bra. I say what look, what you saying, I'm a star boy, living up north, but I made it Niger. What you tryna make something, man, I like, hurry, I'm next up. Can't you see what we fronting, come off a road, cause man, I like setting up best shots. Good view where you hunting. Why I wake in the morning, why we are making the money. Why I wake in the morning, why we are making the money. We are here making the money, I am making the money. Why I wake in the morning, why I wake in the morning. Tryna make something, man, I like setting up networks, tryna see what works. Put it out there, this your heads up. I be like henceforth, go repair your locks, or you get cuffed at the curb like why you want 10 stop. Man, detect your bluff, then roll up to your block, then we dumping, let it not get rough. You go get blood clots. I bear the corporate, you need to forfeit. I might deposit, living with scars. I signed the conflict, I think you force it. Man, I get comfy, spitting these bars. I was in the cup, man, chatting bad shit, run up on me. I was like, rah, that was like in bang bang, was like in gang at the end of the day, getting better by far. One thing go lead to one other thing. Before, normal team, press and play, repeat, radio spin. To your city, turn to my scene, but you need to stop on that thing. Don't leave the part of my kin, never see the scars on my skin, cause they heal before I find them. Wide awake in the morning, why we are making the money. Wide awake in the morning, why we are making the money. We are here making the money, I am making the money. Wide awake in the morning, wide awake in the morning. Then I tell my Zojo tongue, go find your pen, go support your mans and them. And if you gon' chat to me, just watch how you chat to me, that's a due to exist. Most of all don't go off and find offense, protocol on now depends. And if you gon' brag to me, just watch who I'm about to me, make you seem legit. This rappers talk a lot of shit, but are they ready pampas? In every walk of life, we don't walk on the day of Sabbath. Too many bars, too many yarns, but now your face go chop slap. Don't say we post for Bori Cam, show you for pay for parrots. Better concentrate your foreign before we take your money. All of your mates are adoring. Make here when days are sunny. Debt collectors say they are coming. Make sure your tips are buzzing. Knock, don't wait for nothing. Anticipate your journey. Wake up, wide awake in the morning. Why we are making the money. Wide awake in the morning. Why we are making the money. We are here making the money. I am making the money. Wide awake in the morning. Wide awake in the morning. Wide awake in the morning. Why we are making the money. Wide awake in the morning. Why we are making the money. We are here making the money. I am making the money. Wide awake in the morning. Wide awake in the morning.
Yeah.
So when you started off back in like 2014, you were releasing music under your name, and then recently you changed to your moniker Asuquomo. What
Yeah.
kind of inspired that change?
Asuquomo is actually my name, but it's Asuquomo is Asuquo Mo. So Asuquo is one name. Mo is just my initials for Morris Bo, the name I switched from. So basically, at the time, what I wanted to do was simplify a little bit, but redefine, and reinvent. And Mo is more so, you could say visual artist, writer, or any hobbies that I'm messing around or in practice with for the past 5 years. But in the grand scheme of what's going on, Asuquomo, it tries to encompass all that creative energy and explosiveness and package it into little worlds. So now I get into something where I call world building. So Wide Awake, for example, is a my single from 2019. I tried to do those to like approach creating that project in that mind space where I say I'm world building Asuquomo's Wide Awake. So you find out that these little influences from artistic backgrounds come together, but it's not just because it's just me. It's because I'm also working with creatives who have expertise in these areas who collaborate with me to get it home. So that's I think that Atuquomo is me finding a center for where all these things kind of mesh together.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So your new EP came out in June. Dialbu, is that how you say it?
Yeah, it's Job because the U
Diob?
is typically silent. Yeah, the U
Diob.
is
Okay.
silent, but Job is how you say it. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so that was named after your neighborhood in Port Harcourt, Nigeria, where you were born. What does your hometown mean to you? Like, what do you think of when you think of it? And like, do you still have friends and family there? You visit it often?
Um, I don't visit as often as I would love to. I went back home for the first time in 7 years, last year, 2019, January. And then I spent 3 weeks over there, and then that's how Wide Awake came about. But the thing basically for me is I don't visit as often as I would like, but home means a lot to me. And in this project, I feel like Job would be your answer basically. Job is what home means to me, right? The project. But in real life, Job is just a neighborhood I grew up in. It kind of holds those sensitive memories when you're like a little kid, and nostalgia hits you in daily life growing up, but then it always takes you back to those first memories. Like, when was the first time I felt like this? When was the first time I stepped in a puddle of water and then my cousins were making noises and it felt like a celebration. Intense feelings that stay. So that's kind of how deep I was trying to go back into myself to search for those feelings and shed more light with my current experiences and experiences as an adult now. I think that's what Job was doing, and basically, it's a learning experience for me because I learned so much through the course of the project. It was the most collaborative I had gotten on any project, and it took quite a while and so much more changes happened in that time. So just the project coming to life taught me a lot, and then releasing the project and people receiving it the way they did is still teaching me so much about home. But that was the idea, to like articulate what I can about home and then to learn from it. I feel like it's a good indicator for looking for direction and looking in the right direction for direction. You can hold on to something that familiar and say, this is going to point me in the right, look, help me make the next best step, kind of thing. So that's pretty much what Joe was when we started producing it.
Yeah, it seems kind of like your previous EP, OT Rhythm, was largely about like just looking at how far you've come and the progress you've made, and then Diob is kind of like taking a step back, looking at where you've came from, and then using that as strength to kind of move forward. So when you're creating these two different projects, were you like in a completely different headspace? Were they made kind of close to each other or in different
Um,
times?
Job came together in the expanse of 2 years. I went on a residency to the Banff Center for Arts and Creativity in Calgary, Alberta, and I spent 6 weeks with a bunch of multi-instrumentalists, made good friends, and we jammed out songs, and Job came together in a demo. And then we applied, and then I and my team applied to the Ontario Arts Council, and then the demos got funded, and we went into production in 2019. And just while we were going into production, I was releasing Wide Awake because I was working on that while I was working with the OAC. And then Wide Awake's formula was high intense energy, more of my grime influences, fast pace, mouth running. I have a good take on Eminem, Kendrick. J. Cole, you know, the fast-lipped rappers, Busta Rhymes, and stuff like that. So it's good to know where you have the strength so you can harness. So that's what OT Rhythm was for the most part. And OT Rhythm more or less dropped in form of singles, 2, 3, 4 months apart. And then I have also a video for OT Rhythm, a video for one of the songs from OT Rhythm dropping soon this year. So one thing I also did uh, between these two projects was I didn't give myself too much restriction in, hey, I'm going to finish this and then I'm going to go into this. I kind of let the day by day experiences um, create energies for these songs. That's why once I finished performing with Burna Boy, opening for Burna Boy in Toronto in 2019, the next day I was in the studio recording Northside, right? So I was taking stock of what was going on in the months in the summer, and I was documenting and I was, you know, creating the songs. And then before I left for my residency in 2020, it felt like a good time to put out OT Rhythm, just so my new fan base, if any, hopefully, and you know, when I'm transiting, when I'm rebranding from Morris to Asuquomo, I want to carry along
Right.
my fans, my listeners. So I'm being sensitive enough to drop projects slowly over months in 2019 and 2020 so they can take in the transition and then present the package of dope. So that's pretty much what was going on behind the scenes and played out the way it did.
Out of mind, out of sight. Still I stand my ground in garments of how long I took to come around my ankle stand. Above the sand, the music scene and people in my city love to party on the ground like as if I came to just or came to joke. I've had nothing to do here, use my limits strength without the need to fold. If your heart was cold as stone, if your heart go on the business, I'll tell you, boy, that's all you need to know. Have we all been walking around up on the surface? When on your mind I feel at home celebrating, letting you know what was empty handed now pick on to feel at home. For as you see, I have grown the strength, like I know you're sent. And if you no get friend, I can be your friend, I can be your friend. Alright, listen, take good care of your mission. Don't cloud your ambition, no. All my hard work isn't just for recognition, no. I came to drip in all that sauce, fuck run bang that piston. Mathematicians try to match my teaching. You're not my dog, don't get salty bitching. Now turn by turn, time can hurt your feelings. If time hurts your feelings, don't go looking for me, oh. I'm off on torpedoes, I'm not involved. Don't go looking for me, oh. Have we all been walking around up on the surface? When on your mind I feel at home celebrating, letting you know what was empty handed now pick on to feel at home. For as you see, I have grown the strength, like I know you're sent. And if you no get friend, I can be your friend, I can be your friend. Feel at home, 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 feel at home.
Well, Diope itself definitely sounds like something unique for you. It does a really good job of combining like this hip hop sensibility with an Afrobeat inspired sound, which is very clear on like the opening track Yahweh. What kind of inspired you to lean more towards Afrobeat on this project?
I feel like Afrobeat is doing really well internationally on the world stage, right? And we can see people like Burna Boy and Davido and the new school champion that. But it's also important for people in the diaspora who are not back home to feel like the work that music can do universally, it can still do for them when they're not back home, you know. So I'm starting a conversation for we over here or we out in the open in the diaspora space, and so we can also find something that we more or less relate to, and then relate to being outside from the home that's been spoken of in the project. And also Afrobeat. I think I was listening to interviews. I was watching interviews on YouTube last night, and I picked up a few things. I feel like Afrobeat should be properly owned, and I know for sure Fela Kuti is the father of Afrobeat, no questions asked there. But also the new school who champion Afrobeat in the present day we are in. We are trying to show you all the colors that Afrobeat can bring. We're trying to show you it's more universal than you can think. Hip hop is in there. So I think in Job creation, I tried to hold that hip hop to my own and then let people who I collaborated with fill in their parts. One of the Yahweh you spoke of, the percussionist on Yahweh was my Uber driver,
Oh,
and
really?
we got into a conversation and he said oh, this is what I do. And I checked his Facebook out and he's in my city, and I said, hey, can I hit you up for a session? He said yes, and I got him in the studio, and thanks to the OAC, the project took the shape that I hope it would take because I got the funding. But it wasn't because I had something to pull off. It was more like I had an intention and I was able to afford the right people in the room to help me get that goal. Yeah, and I think Yahweh, you're right. Yahweh is one of my favorite songs after the EP dropped. It's a good fusion for sure.
I wait for your signal. I wrap my head around the law of things to do under the sun. I wear your cloth and dance your song. A man of war. Yahweh. I wait for your signal. Yeah. Face to face and one on one. A pair of shoes I never worn has brought me this far all along to be reborn. I beat your drums, I speak your name. I take directions that you gave me. I would like to put you in your place because I can be used, I can be born. Yahweh. Found your you found things, and you move me, how you move mountains. In my shortcomings, I am long standing. You took me in when I was abandoned. I have been more sound, just understanding my surrounding. My heart's bounding to not leave things how I found them. I am outside standing instead of running circles around them.
This project's also unique just because you don't use any samples on it. Was that like creative process a lot different when you're not working with any samples and just making original beats and stuff?
Um, it's a lot different. I feel like it was for me personally. It was my first time making a decision to not have any samples and going from scratch, just so things are more malleable. So you could still move things around, but they're still original in arrangement. You have to realize for every song that you've listened to on Dope, there are four versions that were demos before we created it. So we have the version that was the, the very first versions were on stage with live musicians, live instruments, you know, on the go, a live concert setup. And then we recorded that. We mic'd all the instruments. This was the BAM's technical department. So they have their things together. So we mic'd all the instruments, got the sounds, and then I had beats that I have found. And then I spent 6 weeks traditionally playing six native drums in my studio in Banff. That's what I was doing. I wasn't messing around with digital instruments. I'm not like pro level yet, you know. So I just kind of hacked it out and hacked at it, had the ideas and hacked at it, and then got some great help, right? So I feel like it came true in that regard. I don't know if I answered your question correctly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. So while the CP is clearly like deeply tied to your hometown in Nigeria, you also have the Ottawa Arts Council and City of Ottawa that helped fund the project.
Yeah.
What do you think? You think there's like influence of Ottawa in there, or that inspired the sound or content of the album?
I feel like for Job, Feel at Home was the first song that I wrote, and I wrote it at 2017, and then that's when Feel at Home started like echoing in my head without the song existing, right? And I think that came from an intense feeling that I was able to clearly see was me being proud of being from Ottawa now, having spent some time over here and acclimatized, you know. So I wanted to take that up and push it to the front of that song and just show that you could move, you can make changes, you could move from one place or the other, and and then reestablish and get back on your game. And it's not too hard of a too difficult of a thing to think about. But that's really where the feelings came from, and then the songs kind of evolved to what they were. And I just want to say the songs started off really differently in terms of just general sound, but the ideas and the lyrics were all the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, you have some really good lyrics in there. I like this one line from Never Die where you say, "I'll split an adjective in half, then stick the sharp end of its branch into your narcissism." That's great.
Oh my god.
How do you come up with that stuff? What's your writing process like?
My writing process is changing right now because I've picked up some newer techniques and some things that I've researched over the past months, just before COVID. But typically, I just write a lot of stuff. I put a lot of stuff down. I've lost a lot of notes that were 3,000 notes, and I lose them because I didn't back up a phone or something like that. But that volume was a thing that I tried to get comfortable putting out in memos and whatnot. But then I also try to sit with songs just to make sure I'm creating the song that I think I'm creating. Because if I want the song to have this feeling and these are the words, I just want to make sure that's what it is. So editing is a thing for me. I can go back and edit. Never Die is a long poem. Where Never Die stops on the album, on the poem, it keeps going. So there's like another stanza or something.
Oh,
But
really?
it's a poem, so it was very wordy. It was very open to put down what I wanted to say. I don't want to say something and then try to sound cool. I'm gonna say it as much as I can say it the way I want to say it. But those were the kind of the parameters to set out the writing for Never Die, What a Sign and stuff. And you can see things like I stick an adjective and have to stick the sharp end of its branch into your narcissism for play of speed and cadence and just flexing my vocal abilities and whatnot. Just fun mostly. I don't think that line itself has any. It's a bad way to say I'll stab you in the back. You know what I mean? It's like a
Right.
bad way to say something cool, basically, but it sounds clever and whatnot. So I still allow myself to be playful and to make sure the intention sets the song to go in the direction where it should go, but keep the elements that I've enjoyed over the past few years always. I find that if I'm really into something this month, it's gonna come out in a song of mine in the next year just because I soaked up a bit of it. So I also try to mitigate myself in finding what I listen to.
You hear me twice, I have said it once. You hear me twice, I have said it once. Now force my efforts, bring forth to bombard you with truths as I strain these horns. Can't falter the ways we launch, waging war on daily bonds. Getting tired of setting fire to check for who is brave enough. Rescue us from days we lost, but guess who won? Guess who won? Man, save your lives. But as time goes by, but shall not we die, may never die, not we die, not we die. These drops of sugar coating on a deeper level. A different devil will face out of 10, I kill 11. Someone told me to skip the bullshit and move to action. Steady waters, open the caps to see food reacting. They be like, who even asked him? Always posting in his captions. If he had opinions, I wonder who would back him. We went back and forth as we talked about how the black man is cursed. Though he fights for rights on the cost of survival like this, the cops like we're doing it for the praise. Would you rather debate your race in the main city sort of Porsche? I'm proud of my growth and pace. I got peace of mind by his grace. I do whatever it takes. The fact that I'm already great must give up like his sakes. I see it all on your face. He told me I make a lot of mistakes. I regroup and correct myself. As for SMAP, I just had to test myself. Had to relate with the times. How long did it take to design? Had a choice to be great or divine. I been off my grace for the wine. I'm here to correct the mistakes to your mind. So I'm taking my time. And if you talk shit, man might take out your spine. Or I split an adjective and have to stick the sharp end of his prank into your narcissism. Hear me out in silence. I say, man, civilized. But as time goes by, what shall not we die? May never die, not we die, not we die. And so I ask, what shall I buy on the far other side, where no one makes it out alive? Not we die, not we die. Usually I'm outspoken only when I'm getting therapy. I share my feelings with my therapist and tell her please don't compare me to patients who need a shrink. I have been very woke now, finally I get the cheese. You got broke so they wonder if you ever sleep. Yes, I've been down in ignorance, they should've never mixed brown skin with France. The outcome is too much arrogance, I come define intolerant, I come define intolerant. Civilized, but as time goes by, what shall not we die? May never die. Not we die. Not we die. And so I am. What shall I buy? On the far other side, where no one makes it out alive. Not we die. Not we die. Man, civilized, but as time goes by, oh, I already die, may never die, never die.
So part of the message in the closing track, Waterside, seems to be saying that when you have like this fear or self-doubt, you turn back to wherever your sense of home is to kind of guide you forward. What makes you kind of feel at home when you might be like far away from home? What do you think of?
That's a really good question because your question takes everything I'm trying to do on the album and it puts it into a question. I feel like really what happened for me was going into research of identity, family history, African spirituality, spirituality in general. Just trying to learn a certain number of things over the past 2 years is really what's going on. And these things have made me make some certain decisions and go in directions where that mostly I was doing to experience and learn and grow. It wasn't really for my benefit. So I feel like to feel at home, you have to really go out there and create what makes you feel at home to exist. If you need a couch to feel at home, you're gonna get a couch to feel at home, right? So if I need to put out Job, to feel like I'm where I am, and my story of how I got here isn't misunderstood, or there's no question mark, or you're not listening to what is to never die, and you like it, but you're like, where's that coming from? What are you trying to say? I just wanted to keep a good compass on where things are pointing. So I feel like that all came true in the EP. Yeah.
So, what would you think is the one thing, the most important thing you would want listeners to walk away with after listening to this EP?
Um, I feel like listeners should enjoy the EP, because usually, okay, let me break it down. Let me use COVID as an easy out. Before COVID, I would have told you take away this or take away that, but I took away so much from creating the project that it's not just about what I wanted to create for people to take away anymore. It's done so much for me that I want people to really take a lot from it. Take as much as you need to. It's got so much. It's got like ideas from really great people, like really like Juno nominated, Canadian Juno nominated producers, you know, good people who play stuff that blow your mind. So I don't know how to sell the project. It's bigger than me, you know what I mean? But I feel like the intention for the project was to create something that shows harmony. Pitchfork, I think, quoted it was had a feeling of family reunion. And if I knew to say that, I would have said that first. But they said that, and it really, I was like, oh wow, you guys get it. But you know what I mean. So it has a lot of good things in it that I would be doing it wrong if I just said take away one thing. But I released it June 12th, and I didn't know what to do when COVID broke out in ending of March, and my date was set, and I was working with a council. I can't move things around too much, but I stuck with my guns because I knew it needed to be out more than it needed to come out in a perfect day. It needed to be out there. So those are the kind of thoughts and energies that follow the EP. So I want people to, if you get your hands on Job, just sit down and let the record talk to you. And when it's done, you're gonna walk away with a feeling. And maybe in an hour or in a day, you're gonna feel it. You're gonna know that this is what this gave to you, because it's really intense in there.
Run as far as you want, work hard, save wages. Forget these stars, tighten your affirmations, don't start again afresh. Where your feelings hard by replies, like in a story required in text, suggesting stars, brighten two separate bonds, we may replace a birth. You come here again, with nothing to pay, but something to take home. This is not about your taste. I've been talking to the flame, as a matter of fact. I could say it again, but maybe you're pace slow. This is not about your taste. I've been talking to the flame. What the? Carry this boat. Love you anyhow. Love you anyhow. What the? Carry this boat. Love you anyhow. Love you anyhow. Deep in your pockets, him in the office. Make you believe endorsements while you bleed like the faucets. How else do we cling to the sockets? Unplug from a new age horse shit and trace your origins back to its paw prints. You either sheep or you paw pet. The Matrix made this, but the main trick that makes this to what they is. They are existential beings trapped inside experimental dreams. You don't want the answers just yet. We can't acknowledge the complex nature of the sense of self as a concept. Perception is screwed and offset. What the? Carry this boat. Love you anyhow. Love you anyhow. What the?
Have you listened to Waterside?
I have, yeah.
Yeah. What's your favorite personally for you?
I think I don't know. I really like Waterside. I think it's like a great way to end the project.
Yeah.
But Yahweh's also just a really great opener. I think it'd be between those two.
Okay, that's
And
good.
Feel at
That's
Home.
good
I
to
think
know.
the end of Feel at Home is also one of my favorite
Yeah.
parts. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, you just
Okay, that's great. I would say too, I have visuals that would give more story and context to the project. So Joe is gonna have some videos probably in
awesome.
2021, just because I have some delays on release dates that I would have had for OT Rhythm because of COVID. So Joe is still gonna get some videos for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, man.
Well, yeah, that's about it for the interview. Thanks so much for sitting down with me. Everyone listening, go buy Asuquomo's stuff on Bandcamp. He's on all streaming
Yeah.
platforms. To get on there
Yeah.
and listen.
Thank you so much for having me, Parker. Parker literally just got in my DMs and was like, "Hey, we got to do this chat," and I was like, "Hit me up anytime." So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you. Thanks so much. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. I hope you enjoyed the interview. And if you enjoyed the music, again, check out Asuquomo on Bandcamp, buy his music, and stream him on all streaming platforms. I'm going to close the show by playing his song Toile that he released last year in memory of his grandfather. See you next week.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Golo, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Golo, golo. I play big balls like sword in the hand of a preacher. Sleep on close eye, wait for the visa. Can I be good as a teacher? Give them 0.45 millimeter. Came across from your river. If I do all this for you, will you at least consider that I've sold my seed as your giver? Let them swing hands, but you wave politicians. If you see me walking down your street on any day, all I need is one toilet. Give me one toilet, oh yeah. If you see me walking down the road on any day, all I need is one toilet. Give me one toilet, oh yeah. Make we relate it, make we talk. You ask for me, I don't return. I came with the juice, I beat you on the sauce. You lean on me and I will be strong. The thing is say, I stay because you know understand, therefore I got be shown. We ready to put trigger my safety off. And if they know I crit, tell them say I do your back with flows. And I follow the beat, give you the sauce and I make you believe. If you could pay me with interest. Don't let me touch ground, go with the G's. I got the flows and I know the beat. See you be playing with the ball, but you can't play with the man. Came here for the truth, I just shaking your ground. It don't take, begin. If you see me walking down your street on any day, all I need is one toilet. Give me one toilet, oh yeah. If you see me walking down the road on any day, all I need is one toilet. Give me one toilet. May your truth be told over and over. Your old soul shall never die, never die. Say cause now you be old soldier, baba, old soldier. Your old soul shall never die, never die. I pray wake up one day and see all your children with a smile on your face for the strength and the grace to provide all the things they go need when we run out of space for this place. But me, I never like to rush things. I say me gonna take time. One day it go make sense, but for the meantime, watch it on your touch screen, make stimulate minds. Look on they ask me for the same kinds, and they say I got the flows and I know the business. So you been playing with the ball, but you can't play with the man. And they sit down for ground, I be one me and it down. It don't take begin. If you see me walking down your street on any day, all I need is one toilet. Give me one toilet, oh yeah.